Hello and welcome today to this call. Going to be talking about voice calling in Microsoft Teams with myself, Adam Gleeson, and my colleague Anthony Charman.
Hello, I'm Anthony Chalmers, as Adam says, and I'm a Microsoft 365 business consultant. So I've worked with organisations in helping them to embed Microsoft solutions into their environment, and really with a particular interest in the Teams calling functionality. Adam, the agenda is in front of us now. So we've done our quick introductions. We're first of all going to look at the need for change, why this change has come about. Then we're going to look at the Microsoft phone system itself and calling within Microsoft Teams and the ways in which we can license and organize and connect our systems up so that Teams is fully integrated with the traditional telephone system. Then we're going to have a quick look at Microsoft Team Rooms, and then a few final thoughts to help you on your way with projects of this nature. So why has this all happened? What's changed in the last 2 years? And it will come as no surprise to you that most of what we're talking about now probably wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for COVID-19. It's had a massive effect on organizations, and it's had a massive effect on the way in which we work. And the ways we worked in the past didn't, just wouldn't work now. Adam, how has it changed the way in which you're working at the moment?
All of the things that you just alluded to, Anthony. I live an hour and a quarter away from the Compute World head office, and I used to be in the office 4 days a week. I'm now in the office 1 or 2 days a month, if that really, and indeed I don't really need to go into the office. We did an implementation of a VoIP system ourselves about 12 months before COVID hit. Had we known COVID was coming, we wouldn't have bothered, because the acceleration that sort of Teams has caused means that we do all of our work through Teams now, and it very much, as it says on the screen there, it's a hub for communication, collaboration. I can use it from wherever I am, whether I'm on a mobile phone, whether I'm sat at my desk here in the kitchen, or I can do it whether I'm sat at my desk in the office, or indeed in boardrooms, as we'll see later on in the presentation.
Yeah, I think for me the same. The way I work changed. I spend my whole life in Teams. I don't, I frequently don't make a call over the PSTN network or the traditional phone network for weeks apart, because my whole life is revolving around Teams.
Exactly. Yeah.
But that network still has a significant part to play. I kind of refer to it as the lowest common denominator. If I need to phone the police, then or emergency services, that would be where I go to in my house, would be the traditional phone. If I need to talk to a store or something like that, if I'm looking for a product, the chances are I pick the phone up and talk to them. Although more and more, we're doing that shopping online. So there is still a role for a traditional telephone network within our organizations, even though we've been through so much change. So the Microsoft phone system, what is it all about? How does it help me, and how does it bring the traditional telephone system into the Teams environment? We're going to look at that in a bit of detail now. So what is the Teams phone system? It's a core component of Microsoft Teams, which allows us to bring the traditional telephone network into our working environment and our Teams kind of hub for teamwork. Adam, do you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Absolutely, yeah. So, phone system is, as Anthony said, the core component of Microsoft Teams calling. So, although we will do calling with Teams regularly, when we want to start bringing in the PBX, which is the public branch exchange, and the typical type of stuff that you would have been deploying onto your on-premises environment for a VoIP system, or any kind of other phone system that you're going to use internally, and this is all going to sit in the Microsoft Cloud, and is intended as a full replacement for any of your existing PBX exchanges. It's all delivered by Microsoft from the Microsoft Cloud, and it allows connection of the Teams agents and clients and all of that good stuff that's hosted by Microsoft to the public switch telephone network.
Excellent. I mean, I'm just thinking of some of the organisations I've worked in. there's always been a cupboard somewhere with a box on the wall where all of the
Yeah,
telephone connections were linked into. And for some reason, that always became the responsibility of the IT department at some point, and that was probably just because it had a plug on it. And then we saw kind of voice over IP and that total integration into the computer network for your telephony. And I suppose this is just one step further, where we're taking Teams calling and the PSTN connections deep into the heart of Microsoft's Teams cloud. So
absolutely.
yeah,
And instead of it being in a cupboard, it's now in Azure.
yeah. So how do we pay for this is probably the next question. And I think this is where we look at the licensing. Microsoft isn't going to give us a telephone system for free, or they wouldn't be making as much money as they are. So it needs to be paid for. So how do we pay for that license? And what licenses do we need to run the Microsoft phone system?
So in addition to the normal Teams licensing, and by normal Teams licensing, I mean the version of Teams or the licensing for Teams that you would get as part of a Microsoft 365 subscription. Um, for the voice calling, there is an additional license that you have to purchase, which is called Microsoft 365 Business Voice. And that's purchased on a per user basis or for common area phones. So if you have a reception phone or a phone in a meeting room and things like that, they're licensed separately. Worth noting, though, that if you do have Microsoft 365 E5 licensing in hand, then the business voice license is also included in those licenses as well. Now, alongside that, you then have either a calling plan or you use direct routing with a SIP provider, and we'll come on and talk about those in a moment.
So to actually license the use of the phone, I need those Microsoft licenses that I can buy directly
That's
from
right.
Microsoft. In order to make calls in that environment, I've either got the option of buying a calling plan or buying minutes in effect from Microsoft. So they will provide the breakout into the Microsoft cloud, from the link between the Microsoft cloud and the PSTN network, or I'm using this direct routing option
That's
with an
that's right.
existing provider. Yeah.
That's right, Anthony. Yeah. So it's not to be confused. When I first started looking this, that then it seemed a little bit confused, and I sort of thought, well, Teams does voice calling anyway, but this is specifically when we're talking about breaking out into the public switch telephone network. So standard calls between two people using the Teams client, that's all handled in the cloud by Microsoft, and that's included in the sort of the core Teams product.
Yeah. Okay. So if I buy these licenses, what does it look like in my Teams client?
It makes a little bit of a change. It's a really intuitive interface. So first of all, it's all under the calls tab, as indicated by the yellow arrow. And the first thing that you'll notice that's different is that you have a keypad. So very much like any other soft phone that you would have used. Um, Secondly, down where the green arrow is, you can select your headset options and stuff like that, or indeed you can set up voice forward to voicemail. So for if you want to sort of redirect your calls away. It's got a typical and intuitive interface around looking at your call history, missed, incoming, placed, and voicemail. And it's lot less complex, in my opinion, than some of the other sort of soft phones that I've used in the past. So it's really easy for people to get the hang of and get into and start using.
Yeah. So I've used various soft phone applications over the years with varying levels of success. But this looks good because it's just totally integrated into where I'm spending most of my life
Exactly,
at
yeah.
the moment, which is deep within the Teams interface alongside my other methods of communication. So let's look at the features that it'll give us. It's kind of nicely integrated into our Teams environment, but is it a kind of, is it a noddy telephone system that will just do the basics, or can it actually offer us some deep functionality? And of course, the answer to that is that it is a kind of very feature-rich telephony solution. It's managed from within the Teams admin console, and it gives us the things and the features that you will have within most of your traditional on-premises or cloud-based telephone solutions. So we've got auto attendance in there. We've got a comprehensive voicemail solution with voice to text as well, which is incredibly useful because it will, enables you to just look on your mobile device and read the voicemail, rather than having it, having to dial up and listen to it. We've got things like group pickup and forwarding of calls on Busy. It's got integrated hold music, and it also it handles all of those things you would expect with call forwarding and consultative transfers and things like that, and call parking. So it offers all of the functionalities that you would expect from a traditional on-premises or a VoIP-based cloud-based solution. Are there any things that I've missed out there, Adam?
No, I think that's an accurate description of it. It's very much a like-for-like replacement for many PBX systems. Um, PBX systems have been around for a long time, and there's always a little bit of variety, but certainly the core functionality that is offered by them all is absolutely offered by Teams Voice. So it's there's nothing that's going to sort of inhibit or prevent you from being able to adopt it.
Yeah. One thing I would point out is that, if you're running a kind of call center for a larger organization, then, there are some limitations within the Teams voice system. You probably wouldn't implement it in there. It would mostly be around the reporting pieces and the management of calls as they come through the system. But Microsoft do partner with a number of third-party call center providers to provide a fully integrated solution. And we've implemented other solutions around this for call center management. And often they are kind of multimedia type communication centers, so that you can interface with messages coming in from Twitter and also from Facebook and things of that nature. But we may touch on that in a moment. So, Adam, we mentioned two kind of approaches to paying for your calls and connecting to the PSTN network earlier. Do you want to take us through those?
Absolutely. So Microsoft have been quite sort of reserved, really, and sensible in how they've done this. So you can either use Microsoft itself and use Microsoft phone system with a calling plan, um, and Microsoft essentially take on the role of the PBX and your telephony carrier and so on and so forth, and they do all of that for you. And then you connect out straight out to the public switch telephone network. Or alternatively, if you wanted to integrate with an on-prem environment, if you've got some slightly more advanced requirements around the call features that we talked about, call recording typically being one of the ones that we see mentioned quite a bit, or indeed if you want to interface with contact center solutions or legacy VoIP solutions, then you can use something called direct routing, and I'll come on to explaining a little bit more about what that is. And just a quick note, actually, that on the screen there it says on premises for the under the direct routing. That could be on premise, or just as similarly, it could be PBX being run as software as a service.
Yeah. So if I was setting up a new business, it looks like, if I didn't have some existing experience with connecting through a telecoms provider and SIP trunks and things of that nature, it would look like a calling plan would be a good option for me. Is that right,
That's
Adam?
absolutely right. For smaller organizations, and certainly people that don't already have VoIP systems, then going with the Microsoft calling plan is quite a sensible way to go, because it just makes it nice and easy. You've already got your team stuff stood up in the cloud. You don't have to worry about configuring sort of public branch exchanges and all of that good stuff. Microsoft will just manage all of that for you, and it just quickly enables you to be able to plug your team's environment and add the public switch telephone networking connectivity into your existing team's environment.
Excellent. I just we just re-emphasize that kind of that element of it. Once you've bought your Microsoft Voice licenses and your keypad has appeared in effect in your Teams client, then there's two ways, two approaches to paying for your calls. Calling plans within them have two other options as well. So we can buy a domestic calling plan, which will mean that we're buying a number of minutes in advance per user for making calls within the country that we're based, and then we can buy domestic calling plans, which are obviously more expensive and can handle us phoning international numbers as well. We can also top those up. So if the number of minutes that we're allocated as standard per user per month isn't enough for our organization, then we can go and buy additional calling minutes from Microsoft. And then, it's as simple as that. We don't need to worry about anything about the connection between Teams and the PSTN networks across the world. That's all handled within the Microsoft cloud. So that's
Absolutely.
quite a good and simple option for that. So the other option, which I'll ask Adam to talk through because it's quite a technical one, is to use direct routing. Tell us about that, Adam.
Thank you very much. So let's have a look at this architecture in a little bit more detail. So we have the phone system, first of all, that we've already talked about, and we can then have the end user. We then think about the end users sat in Teams rooms or on PCs with a headset or a desk phone. We then bring into the direct routing elements, and namely, this is a session border controller appliance supplied and hosted by Ribbon Connect, and that is maintained on behalf of Computer World in this instance by PBX Hosting. You can use other companies to host that as well. The session border controller then connects out by a voice trunk to the PSTN carrier, and any numbers that we're leasing are also held and managed there. Additionally, we can then connect with as the pink box shows, the contact center solutions that we've already got. Computer World have worked with Anywhere 365 for a number of years, but there are a number of others available. So it's certainly not restricted to using Anywhere 365. And then finally, if you wanted to maintain your on-prem PBX solution for a period of time, you can connect that directly into the session border controller that's hosted in the cloud as well. So it means that we really do get a very feature-rich environment in doing this. And I believe, Anthony, you've got quite a bit of experience with working around the contact center implementations, don't you?
Yes, because I do a lot of business consultancy work. We've worked with a number of organizations, such as housing associations, where they're very reliant on their call centers for tenants to be able to call in. And they are critical pieces of the organization where they need to be able to monitor the performance, make sure that the people aren't sat on the phone too long before they answer the call, and make sure they've got a real grip on how the operators are performing
Hmm.
across those call centers. So yeah, Anywhere 365 and various other projects that we've worked with give you that functionality. They give you those wall boards, which we're used to seeing in a traditional physical call center, but also, with the advent of, with the pandemic, where people have had to go and work from home, give them that flexibility to act as a virtual call center with all of that monitoring, but with their agents placed, all over the country. So yeah, a very good product and integrates incredibly well with Teams and works alongside the Teams administration. So yeah, if you're running a serious call center, then that's the way to do it when you're using the Microsoft phone system.
There certainly have been a couple of instances on the projects that I've worked with that, although they didn't have a need for the full-blown call center, a lot of the features that you talked about before around call queuing and the call handling, the things that are baked into the Teams voice products by default, was actually enough for those smaller environments. Now, even though they didn't use a contact center whereby there's hundreds of desks or dozens and dozens of people, and they've got to maintain call times and stuff like that. It's just worth noting that some of the features that come out of the box with Teams Voice can actually go a significant way to satisfying that, certainly around hunt groups and stuff like that as well. So it's worth considering everything.
Yeah. Okay. So Microsoft support a variety of a kind of accredited session border controllers, and that's that kind of physical or virtual box which links you from Teams into the Microsoft network, and and into the PSTN network, and also support a number of different contact center solutions as well. So we've just popped those up on the screen so you can see if any of those are relevant to yourselves.
And
So
and these lists are growing all the time as well. It's probably worth noting that people are getting themselves certified to actually provide these services to Microsoft all the time. So sorry
yeah,
to interrupt you there, Anthony.
that's all right. So as we come into land here, just wanted to do a very quick comparison around the kind of Microsoft solution and around direct routing. Adam, do you want to take us through that?
Absolutely. So um, let's just sort of look at the common features really. So the phone system license, the voice Teams voice call, sorry, the Teams voice calling license is exactly the same for both of them. With the Microsoft built basic solution, you then purchase calling plans and credits. Whereas with direct routing, you're looking at actually purchasing SIP trunks with a calling package built into that, and then the session border controller that needs to be hosted as well to give you that external connectivity and integration with the other solutions. Both solutions support audio conferencing and provide you the ability to do that. And they also give you the ability to use common area devices and meeting rooms. And we're going to touch upon Teams meeting rooms in a moment. In addition, the direct routing path also gives you the capability to do some call recording as well. So some contact centers require that their calls are recorded for training purposes, as we've all heard them say many times.
Yep. So let's talk about a little bit about Teams rooms. So, I mean, there's a lot of talk at the moment about the kind of hybrid working, the fact that we're allowed back into the office now. And, you know, you can see some of the pictures on the presentation at the moment of how that might look, in that we want to accommodate people who are coming in from remote sites, and we're also got people collaborating within the office, and they're all very impressive. But how do we integrate kind of PSTN into those solutions, Adam?
Well, okay. So first of all, one of the cool things that I like about Teams rooms is that we no longer have to think about sort of, when we're sat at our desk doing calls day in, day out, and we're using one solution, and then every now and then we have to go into a meeting room or a conference room, and we then have to figure out how the video conferencing software and stuff like that works. With Teams meeting rooms, you're using exactly the same solution that you're using on your laptop. Um, Albeit it's something that is based around a single panel that you can see, the small panel that sits on the desk there. It allows you to log in very quickly and very easily and get the Teams meeting room up and running very quickly. It also, because this is then part of Teams, the Teams voice element then allows people to be able to dial in. So if the person that you're talking to or you're conferencing in doesn't already use Microsoft Teams and isn't in a position to actually use that to access it, they can still then just use their phone to dial into the call. Or, for example, if one of the attendees is late and the data signal is not very good, they can then dial in just using their normal phone, um, just sort of whilst they're getting there. And these solutions are fully packaged and fully integrated solutions that allow the conference room from the size of a small huddle space, the likes of which you might see on the top on the left hand side, to a larger sort of boardroom setting that perhaps is the sort of nice space age silver one at the bottom, to then enormous conference rooms. I mean, the one that I've got there was done for 30 users, but I've seen designs for these conference rooms where you're talking about 70, 80, 90, 100 people, all attending a single Teams meeting room. The audio video equipment is absolutely superb. Now we work a lot with Poly. We also do a lot of work with a company called Yealink. Both Poly and Yealink both do these fully integrated Teams rooms packages. You can see one of them at the top of the screen, and then at the bottom right is the Poly equivalent. These conferencing cameras will, as a sort of standard, will sit and film the entire room so that your attendees can see the entire conference room. But then as people start to talk, they will actually focus in on the person who's talking's face. So that it just makes it a little bit clearer who it is that's talking, but it also adds that personal touch, so that you just don't just have a sort of an anonymous voice coming out of a sea of faces.
Yeah,
So
and we
definitely worth a look. Sorry, Anthony.
that's right. I was just going to say it's really important to emphasize that with your PSTN solution integrated into Teams through the Teams calling, you can be bringing those people in. They won't get the audio and video experience, but they're still an integral part of those
Absolutely.
meetings within that environment. Okay, we're just going to have a few final thoughts on this subject. And I think probably the important one here is that the PSTN is still a vital component in our businesses. If you're, with the housing associations I work with, that although people could connect them electronically, when the, from a mobile device or something like that, when the water is pouring out of the, out of a leak, then their natural reaction is to pick up the traditional telephone and phone the housing association and ask for their emergency services. So I think PSTN plays a vital role there, and it won't go away in the near future. I think that's why it's so important that we can bring that type of call deep into the Teams environment. Video conferencing has become very much used for a lot of people, but we're still going to have that PSTN element there. The Teams phone solution is very feature rich and can be enhanced with a kind of a contact center solution if you need that level of support. And it will integrate either with your existing SIP provider and enable you to use the existing lines that you're renting at the moment, or you've got that option to use the calling plans to enable it to get out to the PSTN network without having to have that long-term contract with a SIP provider. Any bits you'd like to add to that, Adam?
The Teams room stuff. I'm a big fan of Teams rooms. I think it's really cool technology. The hardware that we install is really good now. I mean, I've worked with AV implementations for conference rooms in the past, and that they were a real nose sometimes to actually get them working, and then they wouldn't stay working for very long. And when I was sat working on the support desk, I was constantly backwards and forwards up to the conference room to reset it all or to set it up because someone else had a meeting and they couldn't figure out how to work it. The Teams rooms just make it easy. It literally is just push a couple of buttons. You invite the Teams room into the meeting when you're scheduling it, and then when you walk into the Teams room, it's sat there waiting to go, and you just click start meeting, and off you go. Really, very, very good. You should definitely come and talk to us about that because it's something that we've got set up at Apex House, and we can give you a good demo of that.
So yeah, and I would also say that my colleague Barry and Megan have created a really good video with Polly going around their experience center. So if you wanted to look at that in some detail, then you can do that. But that's all we've got for this session. I hope you found it useful. I hope you're enjoying Define Tomorrow as a whole, and that you're learning lots of stuff. If you do have any questions, then do reach out to your Computer World account manager or to myself or Adam, and we can point you in the right direction and help you out. But thank you very much for your time today.